It was a cool autumn afternoon on November 5th, 1975, when a group of loggers working in the dense forests of Apache-Sitgreaves National Forest in Arizona found themselves at the center of a mystery that would captivate the world for decades. Travis Walton, a 22-year-old logger, was working with his colleagues when an event occurred that none of them could explain. A strange and glowing object, hovering silently above the treetops, would forever change the course of their lives. Travis and his crew were finishing up their work for the day and were preparing to head back to their truck when they saw the light. At first, they thought it was just an odd reflection, but as the object grew larger and closer, it became clear that this was no ordinary phenomenon. Travis described the object as a disc-shaped craft, hovering just above the trees, casting an eerie light that illuminated the forest around them. The object was silent, and it seemed to defy the laws of physics with its hovering motion. The other loggers, including Travis' close friends, were filled with a sense of unease and fear. Some of them were unsure what to make of it, while others were paralyzed by sheer terror. Travis, however, couldn't resist the urge to approach it. Despite the growing anxiety among his friends, he bravely stepped forward and began to walk toward the UFO. His curiosity got the better of him, and he was determined to get a closer look. As he approached the object, the others watched in shock. What happened next would forever alter the course of Travis' life and the lives of those who witnessed the event. Suddenly, a beam of light shot from the UFO, striking Travis and knocking him to the ground. His friends screamed in horror as they saw Travis lift off the ground and disappear from sight, his body enveloped by the blinding light. The group was left frozen in fear, unsure of what to do or how to explain what they had just witnessed. When the light finally faded and the UFO disappeared into the night sky, Travis was nowhere to be found. His friends immediately panicked and rushed to where he had been struck by the beam. There was no sign of him. The group was left standing in the woods, disoriented and terrified, with no explanation for Travis' sudden disappearance. For 5 long days, the search for Travis Walton consumed the town. The local authorities were notified, and a massive search operation was launched. Hundreds of people, including police officers, search and rescue teams, and volunteers, combed the forest in an attempt to locate the missing logger. The search turned up nothing. There were no signs of Travis in the surrounding area, no tracks, no indication that he had wandered off. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. As the days passed and the search continued, questions began to surface. The searchers, who had found no trace of Travis, began to speculate that something unusual had happened. But they also wondered, could the loggers have been mistaken? Could Travis have simply run off and staged his disappearance as a hoax? As the situation grew more desperate, rumors spread about the possibility of UFO involvement. Some locals dismissed the idea, but others speculated that Travis had been taken by extraterrestrial beings. Then, on the 5th day of the search, something extraordinary happened. Travis Walton suddenly reappeared, disoriented and in a state of shock. He was found walking along a highway several miles from where he had last been seen. His appearance was startling. He was dirty, his clothes torn, and he looked as though he had been through some sort of trauma. But it was his story that left everyone stunned. Travis claimed that he had been taken aboard an alien spacecraft during the time he had been missing. According to his account, he remembered being struck by the beam of light from the UFO and then losing consciousness. When he awoke, he found himself aboard a strange, metallic craft. He described the interior of the spacecraft as being sterile and cold, with walls that seemed to shimmer and change shape. Travis was surrounded by beings that appeared humanoid, but were unlike anything he had ever seen before. He described them as short, with large black eyes and a grayish skin tone. They had no mouths or noses and communicated with him telepathically. As he recounted the experience under intense questioning, Travis revealed that he had been examined by these beings. He was subjected to a series of invasive procedures, including being hooked up to machines and having various parts of his body examined. He remembered the being's cold, indifferent nature and the sense of helplessness he felt as he was being restrained and manipulated aboard the ship. Travis also claimed that the beings attempted to communicate with him, but he was unable to understand their language. He felt an overwhelming sense of fear and confusion, unsure of what was happening to him or why he had been taken. After what seemed like hours, Travis was suddenly returned to Earth. He found himself back in the forest, his body covered in bruises and scratches. He had no idea how much time had passed or how he had been returned to the ground. The experience left him deeply shaken, and he struggled to understand what had happened to him. But one thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. When Travis reappeared and his story made headlines, the public was both fascinated and skeptical. The military and local authorities were quick to dismiss his claims, suggesting that he may have been suffering from some sort of mental breakdown, or that the entire story was an elaborate hoax. However, Travis and his friends remained steadfast in their belief that what had happened was real. They passed polygraph tests, and their story gained widespread attention, despite the doubts cast upon it. Travis Walton's extraordinary story of alien abduction became a flashpoint for both skepticism and intrigue. After he reappeared on November 10, 1975, his tale of being taken aboard a UFO sparked national media coverage, and the public's reaction was polarized. While many dismissed his claims as an elaborate hoax or the result of trauma-induced delusions, others saw it as proof that humanity was not alone in the universe. The fallout from Travis Walton's abduction experience would reverberate for years, shaping not only his life, but also the way alien encounters were perceived by the public. The skepticism and public scrutiny. The story of Walton's abduction raised immediate questions. His friends and colleagues, who had witnessed the UFO and the bizarre events surrounding his disappearance, were quickly drawn into the media frenzy. Some, including Travis himself, believed that the bizarre encounter with extraterrestrial beings was real. But for others, the explanation was far simpler. The loggers had concocted the story for attention, or perhaps Travis had staged his disappearance as a hoax. The narrative that the UFO encounter was just a product of collective hallucination or the result of stress was pushed by various skeptics. Despite the public's fascination, Walton's tale was met with considerable skepticism. The polygraph test that Travis had undergone to validate his account also raised questions. While Walton had passed his test with no significant discrepancies in his responses, skeptics claimed that polygraph results could easily be manipulated or misinterpreted, leaving doubts about the veracity of his story. Some argued that Walton and his colleagues had fabricated the tale to gain media attention and make a name for themselves. However, Walton and his fellow loggers stood by their story and maintained their belief that they had encountered something beyond human comprehension. The media's coverage of the event was a double-edged sword for Walton. While it put his story in the spotlight, it also subjected him to a great deal of public scrutiny. He was forced to defend his credibility in a world that was still deeply skeptical about the possibility of extraterrestrial life. His private life, once filled with simple joys and mundane activities, became intertwined with a mystery that many were unwilling to take seriously. Family and friends who had once been supportive were torn between belief and doubt. The psychological toll. Despite the media frenzy, the most profound effect of Walton's abduction was the psychological toll it took on him. In interviews and public appearances, Travis revealed how the trauma of the experience had shaped his everyday life. Although the aliens had communicated with him telepathically, Walton expressed a deep sense of confusion and fear about the beings and their intentions. What they wanted from him, and why he had been chosen, remained a mystery he could not answer. The uncertainty and isolation that accompanied the experience weighed heavily on him for years. He found himself deeply disturbed by the vivid recollections of his time aboard the spacecraft, and these memories continued to haunt him in the form of nightmares and flashbacks. Though he did not suffer from the same intense psychological symptoms that others who claimed to have been abducted experienced, the psychological trauma from the encounter was undeniably significant. The fear, uncertainty, and sense of violation that had accompanied his abduction caused him to question his own sanity. He struggled to reconcile the bizarre nature of his experience with his desire to return to a normal life. Moreover, Travis found it difficult to relate to those who had not shared in his experience. The burden of being one of the few individuals in the world who claimed to have been abducted by aliens left him feeling isolated. He sought solace in the UFO community, where he found people who were not only receptive to his story, but also shared similar experiences. They provided him with a sense of validation, and through these connections, Walton began to accept that his experience was not a figment of his imagination, but rather a part of something much larger and more inexplicable than he had ever considered: the growing UFO abduction phenomenon. Travis Walton's abduction story became one of the most influential and widely discussed cases in UFO lore. His account was pivotal in bringing the subject of alien abductions into the mainstream, following closely on the heels of the Betty and Barney Hill abduction case in the early 1960s. With Walton's experience, the public was now confronted with the possibility that alien encounters were not just limited to UFO sightings, but could involve direct interaction with extraterrestrials. As the years passed, more and more individuals came forward with similar stories of abductions, many describing experiences eerily similar to Walton's. Some spoke of being taken aboard spacecraft, examined by strange beings, and returning to Earth with a sense of lost time, unable to recall the full details of their abduction. The growing number of abduction reports led to the formation of a new subculture of people who believed in the reality of extraterrestrial encounters. The Walton case became a touchstone for this phenomenon, and Travis himself became a prominent figure in the UFO community. In the years following the abduction, Walton traveled across the United States and abroad, speaking at conferences and sharing his story with anyone who would listen. He was determined to spread awareness about what had happened to him and to seek answers about the mysterious beings who had taken him. His willingness to speak openly about his experience helped bring the issue of alien abduction into the public spotlight. The book and movie adaptation. In 1978, Walton wrote The Walton Experience, a detailed account of his abduction, his time aboard the UFO, and the aftermath of his ordeal. The book was a deeply personal reflection on the events that had changed his life, as well as an exploration of the emotional and psychological impact of the abduction. It also provided additional details that had not been revealed before, such as his vivid memories of the aliens and their cold, unfeeling examination of him. In 1993, Walton's story was adapted into a movie called Fire in the Sky, which dramatized his abduction and the events surrounding it. The film, although heavily fictionalized for entertainment, brought the Walton case to an even wider audience and solidified his place in UFO history. It depicted the abduction as a terrifying and surreal experience, highlighting Walton's emotions during his time aboard the spacecraft and his struggle to make sense of the ordeal after his return. Legacy of the Travis Walton case. As the years have passed, the Travis Walton abduction has remained one of the most well-known and widely discussed alien encounters in modern history. While skeptics continue to question the validity of his story, Walton's account has been deeply influential in shaping the ongoing conversation about UFOs and extraterrestrial life. His story gave a voice to those who had experienced similar encounters, but had not felt able to speak out due to fear of ridicule. Today, the Travis Walton case stands as a landmark moment in the UFO abduction phenomenon, continuing to inspire both believers and skeptics alike. Whether his experience was the result of extraterrestrial contact, psychological trauma, or some other explanation, it has left an indelible mark on the world's collective consciousness. As researchers continue to study the phenomenon of alien abductions, Walton's story remains one of the most enduring and mysterious cases in the annals of UFO lore. The story of Travis Walton serves as a reminder of the vast unknowns that lie beyond our world and our understanding of the universe. While skeptics continue to question the validity of such experiences, the many people who have shared similar accounts suggest that we are only beginning to scratch the surface of the mystery of alien encounters. Let Travis Walton's journey inspire you to keep an open mind, to question the known, and to consider the possibility that the answers we seek may be far stranger than we could ever imagine. The truth, it seems, is still out there,